everyone, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we have my October wrap-up. So just like last month, I bought too many things in the month to combine it into a wrap-up and a haul, so the haul will be coming in a little bit, but we are going to do the wrap-up and stats today. So let's jump on into it. We're going to start with the stats first. I read 14 books in the month of October, which is actually really good. It's one of my highest months since like the first half of the year. One of those was a DNF and we will get into that, but it was a total of 3,605 pages. I am super happy that I made it over 2,000 because I want to say that's like my minimum goal usually is at least 2,000 pages, and we hit almost 4,000. I did actually listen to some audiobooks this month. I listened to 3 of them for a total of 14 hours. Going into that reading method, like I said, I had 3 audiobooks, and then I read 4 of them as ebooks and 7 as physical books. For the genre, we had 5 different genres this month. We had 4 horror, 4 fantasy, 3 paranormal, 2 romance, and 1 thriller. I do feel like I leaned a little bit into that like October more creepy horror book season. And for the book format, I had 8 novels, 3 graphic novels, 2 manga, and 1 short story collection. As for indie versus traditional, not so good this month. I had 1 indie book versus 13 traditionally published books. How I got them, 9 of them are books that I owned previous to this year, 4 of them are books that I bought this year, and 1 of them was an ARC. And then for the age category, I'm pretty happy with the spread of this. I had 4 middle grade, 4 young adult, and 6 adult titles. And now we're going to get into the star ratings. My average rating right now is a 3.7 for this month, which I want to say is actually pretty indicative of what this year has been so far. So we had a pretty wide range of those star ratings. I did, like I said, have 1 DNF, which on this chart is a 1 star. I had 3 3 stars, 3 3.5 stars, 2 4 stars, 3 4.5 stars, and 2 5-star reads. I will say my 5 stars were amazing 5 stars, and the ones that were more 3 3.5 were like closer to the bottom, but they were closer to the bottom of those rankings. But in general, a pretty good mix of like really good books and at least okay ones. So those are the stats. We are now going to actually go in and talk about all the books that I read this month, starting with that DNF and then moving on to my favorite book of the month. So my DNF was Maplecroft. This is by Sherry Priest. This was a book that was picked during my TBR game, but also was picked because of the Spookopoly-thon, which was happening in October, which was run by Becca from Becca and the Books. And this was supposed to be my purple book that you guys did a poll pick for. I did DNF this one, and I will talk about a different purple book that I picked instead. But really, this one is supposed to be like Lizzie Borden, a little bit fictionalized, more paranormal, horror, that kind of thing, and it's supposed to be like why this stuff happened, like why she was accused of killing her parents with an axe, all this kind of stuff. I got 30-something pages into this, and it was just really, I could tell, not for me. It is definitely reading more historical than like horror fantasy stuff. I looked up some reviews afterwards, and I guess it's more like Lovecraftian, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't know much about that kind of stuff, so it wasn't something that I wanted to like continue and figure out. But the beginning of this is, or I guess not even the beginning, it might be the whole book. It's written as people writing letters about what had happened in the past and things like that, and I really don't like that. And because of the time period and how this is more historical, the way that they talk is not necessarily my favorite either. It's not like necessarily bad writing style, but it's the kind that I don't like. And it was very slow. We didn't even get anything about the Lizzie Borden stuff. Like, she is a main character, but it's all past the like axe stuff. Like, this is in the future from that, but then we're reading the letters. I don't know, it's very hard to tell because of the fact that it is being written after those events, and it's being told about stuff even after those events, but it's all like in letters. And it's not just her, there was like a doctor or something too, but it's like, you know, October 29th, 1893, and it's like they're talking about stuff, and I'm just, this is not my kind of book. This is not my kind of book. Like I said, I read through some reviews. It seems like the people that like this really like this. The people that didn't had some of the same issues as me. It's not necessarily a fast-paced book. The stuff that I read didn't have anything interesting going on, and then it is going to be leaning more into that Lovecraftian horror versus what I thought we were going to get. It's just not the book for me. Moving into my 3 stars, the first one I have here is an R.L. Stine book. This is a Fear Street chiller book. It's called The Dead Lifeguard. This I did think actually started interestingly. I read this the first day of October, finished it in one day because they're very short. They're from the 90s. But my biggest issue with this one is the way that the sort of reveals and stuff happen. Let me try and explain this without like giving stuff away necessarily. But we're following a character who is going to be a lifeguard at this like country club for the summer. She's been there a couple summers before, and when she shows up, nobody remembers her. And she thinks she sees a dead girl in the pool, like somebody that has drowned in the pool, thinks it's a lifeguard. Apparently there was a lifeguard that had drowned a couple years ago. She doesn't think it's her, you know, this kind of stuff. It's like a, is it paranormal, is it not paranormal type of story. And then there are quite a few reveals that happen in this that I do feel like sort of came out of left field. I don't think they were handled the best way, because one of the reveals, not all of them, but one of them does have to deal a little bit with like mental health and mental illness, and with the way that that played out, I just didn't think it was the best way that the story could have gone, you know what I mean? I was really into it at the beginning for the, is it paranormal? Is there actually a ghost? Is she the ghost? Like, you don't really know what's going on until later in the story. And I was just, I don't know, let down by some of the reveals at the end. My next 3-star was The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. I have not read The Bride Test, but I have read The Kiss Quotient, and I have now read The Heart Principle, and I feel like I might be not the exact right audience for these type of romance, because they are very much focused on the lusting feelings more than the romantic feelings. And while I did like some of the discussions and stuff in here, especially related to the fact that our main character of Anna doesn't realize that she is autistic at the beginning of the book and then discovers that throughout, especially in relation to like the labeling of stuff. Like when she's first told that she is autistic, she gets a pamphlet that says Asperger's, and they do definitely go into her researching herself and her experiences and autism in women specifically, and realizing that like that is not the correct way to label it nowadays, and like why. Like I really liked the discovery of those aspects, but I don't think the romance, like I said, was as romantic as I wanted it to be. They definitely focus a lot more on the sex aspect of it, because the whole point of this book is that her boyfriend decides he would like an open relationship before he decides to actually propose to her, and so she decides to try and get over that sort of feelings that she has because of that with a one-night stand that she has never done before. So there is a lot of that kind of talk and stuff like that, but also while some of the sex scenes were well written, our main character of Anna, I don't know if this is, she's partially asexual or on that spectrum, demisexual, because I am, and I related to a lot of the stuff that this character goes through, but the first sex scene that pops up is her with her current boyfriend before everything happens, and it's her being disgusted by the stuff that's happening, and it's quite graphic in that way. Like I would not expect to have a character not enjoy what's going on in a romance, you know what I mean? Like it was just something that I felt was a little bit too much on page for me personally. And then this one does have some very, very difficult and tough topics, dealing with like a long illness and stroke and death of a loved one and things like that. And so because of how heavy those topics got as well, I didn't feel like the romance was the forefront of this book. So I didn't feel like this was necessarily a romance, even though I still labeled it like that because that's how this is labeled. It definitely felt more like a romantic subplot versus a romance. And so I'm still interested in maybe reading more by this author, but I noticed that the kiss quotient also had sex and those lusty feelings at the forefront more than the romantic feelings, and I'm wondering if that's very common in her work. Like, is the Bride Test that way as well? Because I would prefer the romantic feelings to be at the forefront versus the sex, you know what I mean? And then my last 3-star was Out There Screaming. This was edited by Jordan Peele, and this was my arc. It came out at the beginning of October. I think I actually started reading it in September, and I ended up not finishing it for almost a whole month. It is a short story collection, and so those are things that I can definitely like put down a little bit more because of the fact that like once you read a story, there's nothing necessarily connecting it to the next story, and so sometimes I'll like put it down and forget about it or not want to pick it up. And for this one, it is a low 3. Everything that was in this 3 category was actually a low 3. It's a low 3 because I felt like it was a very mixed bag for an anthology. I mean, you can't guarantee that every single book in an anthology is going to be like the next amazing thing that you read, but I think part of it was because this is Out There Screaming, an anthology of new Black horror, and not everything was horror. There were definitely some stories that had a little bit more fantastical horror elements, but not everything was. There was a few different stories in here that felt more like it was talking about racism, and that's perfectly fine. Some of those things could be very horrific, but it was almost more like a fictionalized story telling us about the history of some of the events that happened because of racism, so it didn't necessarily bring in just horror. And then a lot of the stories that did potentially have those fantastical or horror elements, I didn't understand. I was confused. Like, I needed more explanation, more page room for stuff, because there was some stuff that I was very interested in when they first started as a story, and then I just didn't get it by the end, and so I was left with a like, huh. And so the reason this book is a 3-star is the fact that I averaged the ratings that I gave for every single story in here. I will say, even though I feel like I'm like hammering into that I didn't like a lot of the stuff in this collection, one thing I will say is I feel like the editing of it, at least for the collection as a whole, put a lot of very strong stories at the beginning and at the end. There was a couple in the middle, but I do think it did the whole like sandwiching the stories together right. You get the good stuff at the beginning to make you want to continue reading, and then you get some good stuff at the end to leave you with a better taste in your mouth because you have read it. I will say, like I said, I do have some stories I really enjoyed. All of the stories that I'm going to mention here and their authors, I gave 4.5 or 5 stars. Some of these are authors that I have read from before, and I really enjoyed other things, and so I did enjoy these as well. Other ones are ones that I have not read before, but now I'm very, very curious about their other work, if they have any, because of the fact that I did like it. So, Eye and Tooth by Rebecca Roanhorse. I have read Black Sun by her before, and I did enjoy that one, so I liked this one as well. Then I also had Wandering Devil by Cadwell Turnbull. I've not read anything by him, but I definitely want to. La Sirène, I could be saying that wrong because it had like an accent on one of the letters, by Erin E. Adams. Have not read anything else by her, but I do want to. A Bird Sings by the Etching Tree by an author I apparently did not put their name. I've not read anything by them, but I did enjoy this one. Your Happy Place by Terrence Taylor. Again, have not read anything by them, but I really enjoyed that one. And then Hide and Seek by P. Jelly Clark. I've read Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark. And so I have read a couple things that I really enjoyed. I will say also there was an N.K. Jemisin story in here that I think I gave a 4, so not a 4.5 or 5, so it wasn't on this one, but it was still pretty good. And then they also had some other authors like Nnedi Okorafor and Tochi Onyebuchi, so like there were some other stories in here from authors that I have read, but like just didn't quite give me what I wanted, I guess. Oh, Nicole D. Sconniers is the one that I think I liked, but I did not list earlier. But it was just a mix. Like, I would be very interested in actually having a collection like this that was purely horror, but I would also just be very intrigued by if Jordan Peele would write something, short story, book, a screenplay that didn't get turned into a movie, just because I have watched all the horror movies that he's done and really enjoyed them. And so I know his name was why I picked this up more than anything else, but there was some good things and some not so good things in this collection. Moving into my 3.5 stars, I have 3 of them, but they are all issues in the same comic series. It's going to be An Unkindness of Ravens by Dan Panosian. I read the first 3 issues in this collection, and I ended up reading this instead of The Herb Witch's Apprentice because it was a YA series that had birds on the cover, and this is a YA comic series that had Raven in the name, which was one of the Spookopalathon prompts. Actually, I forgot to say, this one was one as well. This was for Hannibal. It had a body part in the title. But so I switched it out for the comic series because I knew I wasn't going to be able to read like a 400 and something page book when I needed to read something. So this is sort of like The Craft is what it's talking about. It's like a witchy YA high school sort of thing. I gave every single issue that I read, so these 3.5 stars because nothing really happened in them. It wasn't 3 where it was just sort of blah, but I'm intrigued to know more. The only thing that I really know that's going on is that we have the witchy element, and we have a girl who's moved to town with her dad. Her dad used to live in this town, and in the past, her mom and her sister died in a car accident when she was like 2 or 3. But when she moves to this town, there are posters up everywhere of a girl that looks exactly like her, and I think I probably should have said the sister that died in the car accident was a twin sister, a girl that looks exactly like her who apparently only disappeared within the last week. So I'm assuming that we have something to do with that her parents, her mom, and the sister didn't actually die. Is this a Parent Trap situation sort of thing? I don't know. But that's the thing, is I'm intrigued by it. I want to know more. I want to know more about the witchy element, but even though they were just issues like 20-something, 30 pages, I didn't feel like I got enough to rate it higher than a 3.5, but I am curious to see more. I think this whole comic series is actually only 5 issues, so there's only like 2 more to go. So I think I'll probably read them eventually. Moving into my 4 stars, the first one I have here is PTSD Radio by Masaki Nakayama. This one is actually a manga collection of 2 volumes in the series, so I guess it's like the omnibus edition. I gave this a 4. And I will say part of that is because when you first start this, they're very, very short stories. Very, very quick, couple pages each. Not super horrific, but they're all dealing with hair. And eventually everything connects up and it gets creepier and creepier with the vibe as you go through. I gave it a 4 also because I don't understand some of this, but I know this is not like obviously the only 2 books in the series. I want to continue this series, this horror manga hair situation. I feel like we're still going to be dealing with hair when we get further in, but the art style is really interesting and cool. Like, it's very nice, very clean, and then it gets very creepy as you go. And I did eventually, like, I didn't like how short the stories were at the very beginning, but then when I realized that we actually like have almost like a rotation of stories, like here's like a story, and then it'll maybe go back to the first like characters again, and then we'll go back to the third characters, and then the second ones, and then maybe they'll introduce another one, and like they meet up a little bit. Like, it starts to connect, and it's all dealing with hair in some way. Like, I really liked that concept of it, and I need more. I need to see where this is gonna go. So it's not a full 5 star, but I really did enjoy it. I liked the weird hair horror aspect of it, and I definitely need to continue the series. My other 4 star was more manga, and that is going to be Soichi by Junji Ito. This is my replacement for the purple prompt, because even though the front cover isn't like holy purple, the spine is, and so yes. But this is one of the newest releases from Junji Ito, all dealing with his anti-hero Soichi. He has shown up in other short story collections before. One thing I will say about this collection is the beginning of the collection I don't remember, so I don't know if this is something that like those ones hadn't been published in English before, or if I just forgot. But there was a couple stories near the end of the collection I did remember as having been something I've read before with Soichi in it. But I do really like this because of the fact that it is still horror, still Junji Ito's style. But Soichi as a character is 100% like an anti-hero. Like, you don't want to root for him. He's very creepy and weird, but it works really well as like a collection of just like stuff that happens around him. Like, his cousins come to visit, and we have a couple different stories with them in it dealing with having to be cousins of Soichi and things like that. And so I really did enjoy that a lot. It's a 4-star just because it wasn't anything super amazing to make it a 5, and the stories that I've read before in the back, while good when I remember reading them, didn't feel like it connected as well with the ones that were near the beginning. But yeah, it's a very solid collection by Junji Ito. Moving into my 4.5, I have 3 of them, and they were all in the same series. It's the first 3 books in the Magisterium series by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. These are rereads for me. I'm actually currently listening to these on audiobook in the car rides on the way to Presley's school and all that kind of stuff, because they're middle grade fantasy, and so, you know, nothing too crazy in the car that way. But so I read, listened to, you know, whatever you want to call it, the first 3 in this series in the month of October, and I gave them all 4.5. Now, I will say my ratings on these changed a little bit. So the first one I had originally given 5 stars because it definitely has a very big twist near the end. One thing I will say about this is it is a magical school trope. Like, people go to the magical school. That's basically what it's about. Our main character of Colum Hunt, doesn't want to be a magician, doesn't want to go to this school because of what his father has told him. And it takes the chosen one trope and sort of turns it on its head every single book. And I really, really did like that. And I feel like was the first of its kind that I had read, at least, with the way that it wanted to turn that trope on its head in this first book. So I originally gave it 5 stars, but once you know that twist, this story, upon reread, is not super compelling. And I think it's just because of the fact that it's setting up all the main characters, it's setting up the school, it's setting up the magic system, and so some of it just felt a little bit boring to re-listen to when you already know what the twist is. But besides that, I still really enjoyed it, so 4.5 stars. The second one in the series is the Copper Gauntlet. This I originally gave 4 stars, probably because it doesn't really have a super big twist in it, but upon re-listen, I gave it 4.5, and I think it actually might have been my favorite of the 3, just because it is a more typical middle grade fantasy adventure where the kids go out and go on a quest and that kind of thing. Also, this is like not the introduction of Jasper. He is in book 1, but it's more of his introduction into the friend group. He comes and goes, but in this one, he is with them like almost the whole time, and he is very snarky, especially to Call, and Call is very snarky with him. So this book actually made me laugh out loud a couple times, and I was listening to this on a car drive with my husband and stuff, and I don't know if he was really paying attention, but like I was appreciating it more for the actual adventure aspects and humor aspects in this one. So I moved the rating of this one up a little bit. And then book 3 is The Bronze Key. I gave this a 4.5. I think I originally gave it a 5. And it's the same sort of thing as like book 1. We get to a point where it's a little bit boring, probably because they're just in the magic school for most of it, but then it does have a twist at the end that I didn't see coming when I was reading it. I didn't remember this one as well as the other 2, so like at the beginning where it is a little bit slow, it took a little while to like get going, and I didn't remember anything that had happened. But still really, really solid middle grade fantasy stuff. I'm enjoying book 4 right now, and so yeah, 4.5 for the whole series. Then moving into my 5 stars, the first one I have here is Nightfall by Shannon Messenger. This is a middle grade fantasy, very, very chunky one, but I absolutely love these books. It is not my favorite book of the month because I will say out of all of the Keeper of the Lost Cities books, I do feel like they get better and better with each book in the series. However, this one also did feel like it had a little bit more exposition in the middle, like maybe not exposition is the best word, but like downtime where things were being talked through a lot. There was a lot more discussion of plans versus actually putting them into action. But I really love the character development in here. Like, it's 100% like a found family friendship sort of thing that's going on. Like, I really, really love these so much. So even though we did have some of that downtime and it was feeling like the book wasn't moving as fast as it could, I appreciated how the characters were coming together and like actually building those friendships instead. So I still really, really like this. It is a 5 star. It's just not my favorite book of the month. My favorite book of the month is going to be Prince and Assassin by Tavia Lark. So this book right here, this one is the Rainbow Crate edition. This is an indie book, a male-male romance, LGBTQ romance. It is a normalized queerness world. Like, I really appreciated that. And it is quite short, but it was so good. Everything about it, like, I was enthralled from page one. It is one of those sort of like, there's a prince and the assassin is supposed to go and kill the prince, but he's supposed to get close to him first, and relationship and romantic feelings, definitely romance first, happens from there. There is some sex in here that I do think was very well written, but also one thing that I probably should have known just from like the cover and things, like we have, I think this is our main assassin guy, Whisper, but he's hugging like a gigantic cat, and there's a cat here on this part there. Like, I should have known that the cats were going to be a bigger part of the book, and it is like a magical cat where they can sort of like have either telepathy or telekinesis, and they are very much big characters that tie into like our main characters and their relationship and their friendship and all this kind of stuff. And so I absolutely loved it. I loved that aspect. Like, I can't say anything bad about this book because there was nothing that I didn't like. I just absolutely love this. I really appreciate how they did the design of it and everything as well. Like, it's a gorgeous edition, gorgeous book, but I really, really loved it. And in case you're not understanding what I'm talking about right here, because like I feel like my thoughts get less coherent the more I like a book, Rainbow Crate does put nutrition facts. I just dropped the signed book plate. Nutrition facts here that give you like a little bit about the book. So this one, for representation, does have gay, lesbian, black, East Asian, and South Asian representation. Genre is fantasy. Plot has assassins, princes, pining, and hidden identities. And it is 100% an adult book. And the point of view, in case you want, is third person close. But yeah, favorite book of the month. It was a little bit of a surprise for me this month, but like, I absolutely loved it. Could not put it down. I definitely need to read more by this author. There is more in this series, but the series is like companion novels with different main characters and relationships in the middle of each book. So we'll see how that goes, because I absolutely love these characters. But favorite book of the month. And that is going to be it for today's video. Like I said, I will have the haul video up soon. It just was not going to be a short video if I did them both together. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more videos. I do have videos coming out on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I will see you then. Bye!